In the winter of 1857, an entire village disappeared. Not slowly, not mysteriously over months, but in a single, silent night. The village of Eichenwald, tucked deep within a remote valley, surrounded by thick forests and towering mountains, vanished without leaving a trace. Doors were left wide open. Fires burned to cold ashes. Meals sat half-eaten on tables. And yet not a single soul remained. Travelers passing near the valley reported an unsettling silence. The animals were gone. Footprints vanished under the fresh snow. It was as if time itself had swallowed the village whole. No one knew where the villagers went or why. Eichenwald was small, home to fewer than 300 people. Farmers tended the fields. Artisans crafted tools, furniture, and homes. Children played near the forests under the watchful eyes of elders. Life was simple, quiet, and isolated, but that isolation may have been its curse. In the months leading up to that fateful night, strange signs appeared. Travelers claimed to hear low humming noises echoing through the forests. Dogs howled at unseen shapes. Livestock refused to enter certain parts of the woods. Some villagers whispered about flickering lights moving silently between the trees. Most dismissed it as superstition, but perhaps these were warnings no one heeded. Then came the winter storm. Snow blanketed the valley, isolating the village completely. Fires flickered in homes. Families ate dinner, shared stories, and went to bed, unaware that by morning their world would be gone. What happened to the people of Eichenwald? Disease, natural disaster, something far darker. The official reports were missing, incomplete, or destroyed. The truth may never be known. Tonight, we will explore the story of the village that disappeared overnight. Step into the abandoned homes, walk the silent streets, and uncover the secrets that history has buried in shadow. Welcome to Shadow Archives. Before the winter of 1857, Eichenwald was an ordinary village. At least it seemed ordinary. Nestled in a valley surrounded by towering mountains and dense forests, it was a place cut off from the wider world. Its fewer than 300 residents relied on each other for everything. Farmers worked the fields from sunrise to sunset, tending livestock and crops that had sustained families for generations. Craftsmen shaped wood and stone into tools, furniture, and household items. Children ran through the streets, laughing and playing, while elders kept watchful eyes, passing down knowledge and tradition. Daily life followed the rhythms of nature. Families woke early, gathered around hearths for breakfast, and worked together to prepare for the harsh winters that the valley demanded. Community gatherings were common, evenings spent in candle-lit homes, stories told beside the fire, occasional village festivals marking the change of seasons. For outsiders, it might have seemed idyllic. But for those who lived there, isolation carried a subtle unease, a quiet sense that the forests were watching, that the valley held secrets. Over the months before the village disappeared, strange events began to unsettle the residents. Livestock acted strangely, refusing to enter certain areas of the forest. Dogs howled at unseen shadows, packing anxiously near the edges of homes. Travelers passing through reported low, humming sounds echoing through the trees at night, vibrations that seemed almost unnatural. And then there were the lights. Villagers whispered of flickering glows between the trees, small and distant at first, then moving closer, always just out of reach. Most dismissed these occurrences as superstition, the product of imagination and isolation. But in hindsight, these were the first signs that something terrible was approaching, a darkness no one could explain. Despite the unease, life continued as normal. Children played, families ate together, and the routines of work went uninterrupted. The village, though remote, appeared safe. Its people were strong, its homes sturdy, its community tight-knit. And yet, the valley's silence seemed to grow heavier with each passing night, a quiet warning that went unheeded. By understanding the village before it vanished, we see not just a place lost to history, but a living community, full of people with routines, hopes, and fears. and the contrast makes the events that followed even more chilling. What could cause such a lively, thriving place to vanish without a trace? The answer may never be fully known, but to understand the mystery of Eichenwald, we must first immerse ourselves in its life, the ordinary, the familiar, and the subtle signs that foretold the extraordinary. The winter of 1857 brought a heavy snowstorm to the valley of Eichenwald. The wind howled through the towering mountains, rattling the wooden shutters of the village homes and carrying a chill that cut through even the thickest coats. Fires glowed in every hearth, candlelight flickered across tables where families shared their evening meals, and the village seemed as peaceful as ever, unaware that by morning it would be empty. That night strange occurrences escalated. Animals acted unpredictably. Dogs barked frantically at empty fields. Horses shied away from their stables. Chickens refused to roost. Livestock fled toward the edges of the forest, where the shadows of the trees danced unnaturally under the storm's cold light. Something in the air felt wrong, though no one could say exactly what. Inside their homes, villagers continued their routines. Children were tucked into bed, meals were cleared, and families settled by the fire. But the valley held a silence that was deeper than the snow around it. An invisible tension gripped the air, though no one noticed. And then, the impossible happened. By dawn, Eichenwald was gone. Every resident had vanished. Not a scream, not a struggle. No footprints leading into the forest, no traces of escape. Chairs had toppled over as if people had left in a hurry, yet there was no evidence of panic. Meals sat half-eaten. Fires were reduced to cold ashes. Personal belongings, tools, clothing, even small toys were left exactly where they had been. It was as if the villagers had simply been erased from the earth. The storm continued to rage, burying the valley in thick layers of snow, erasing any clue of what might have happened. Travelers who arrived days later were met with a sight so surreal it defied understanding. An entire community, hundreds of people, completely gone, leaving only the silent echoes of lives that had once existed. What could have caused such a sudden disappearance? Some have speculated disease, an invisible plague sweeping through the village in hours. Others wondered if a natural disaster, an avalanche or landslide, had swept them away. Yet no signs of such events were ever discovered. Even the surrounding forest offered no explanation, no footprints, no traces, no evidence. And then there were the whispers. The lights glimpsed among the trees, the low humming sounds, the restless animals. Had they been warnings of a darker force? A presence lurking in the valley, waiting for the perfect night to strike. The night of Eichenwald's disappearance remains unsolved, haunting historians, travelers, and storytellers alike. It was a night where life continued as normal, only to be erased entirely by a mystery that defies logic. Weeks after the snowstorm, when the valley finally became passable, a merchant traveling through the mountains approached Eichenwald. What he saw would haunt him for the rest of his life. The village lay silent. Homes stood open as though inviting the visitor inside, yet there was no one to greet him. Meals were left half-eaten on wooden tables. Fires had long since burned out, leaving only cold ashes and the faint smell of smoke lingering in the air. Tools, clothing, and personal belongings were scattered across the floors and streets. And above it all, a silence so profound pressed down on the valley it felt alive. The merchant called for help, and soon authorities arrived from the nearest town. They examined every street, every house, every surrounding forest. Every investigation ended the same way, with nothing. There were no signs of struggle, no footprints leading away from the village, no signs of mass migration or evacuation. The livestock, too, had been abandoned, horses wandering freely, chickens clucking aimlessly, and dogs packing near empty homes. It was a scene unlike anything investigators had ever encountered. Hundreds of people had disappeared, and yet the village remained as it had been the night before, orderly, untouched, and eerie in its calmness. Chairs were toppled as if hastily abandoned, but there was no indication of panic. Meals were left mid-bite. Candles had burned down completely beside untouched plates. Even the village church stood empty, its bell unmoved by human hands. Some investigators noted the strange detail that nature seemed almost frozen in place. Snow lay undisturbed, the surrounding forests were silent, and no birds or animals had entered the village during the weeks following the disappearance. It was as though Eichenwald had been sealed off from the world itself. The official records of the investigation would later become part of the mystery. Many reports were incomplete. Some disappeared entirely. Conflicting accounts arose about the precise number of residents and the details of what was found. Scholars who later tried to study Eichenwald were met with missing documents, contradictory testimonies, and unexplained gaps in the historical record. It was as if someone, or something, wanted the village erased from history. The discovery of Eichenwald was more than shocking, it was terrifying. An entire community gone without a trace, leaving behind only the artifacts of ordinary life. The unanswered questions multiplied with each passing day. How could hundreds of people vanish so completely? Why did no one survive? And what had the low humming sounds, the flickering lights, and the restless animals foretold? The mystery of Eichenwald had entered a new stage. It was no longer just a strange disappearance. It had become a puzzle that challenged logic, reason, and even the natural laws of the world. The disappearance of Eichenwald left authorities baffled and historians mystified. Hundreds of people had vanished overnight, yet no evidence explained their fate. Over the years, many theories have emerged, each attempting to make sense of the impossible. One of the first theories proposed was disease. Could a sudden, deadly illness have swept through the village, killing or forcing residents to flee in hours? Perhaps some unknown plague struck faster than anyone could react. Yet nearby villages reported nothing. No sickness, no bodies, no signs of epidemic. The theory raised questions rather than answers. Others suggested a natural disaster. An avalanche, landslide, or flash flood might have swept the village away, but investigators found no evidence of such events. The valley remained intact. The forest showed no signs of destruction. If nature had been responsible, there should have been traces, disturbed snow, toppled trees, or damaged terrain. There was nothing. Then came theories of human involvement. Could the villagers have been taken, relocated, or forced to flee by an unknown group? Some historians speculated that political or criminal motives could explain the vanishing. Perhaps a secret militia or powerful landowner orchestrated the disappearance. Yet no one claimed responsibility, and no clues were found. It was as if the people had been erased from existence. And then there were the whispers, the supernatural explanations. Locals spoke of shadows that moved without source, flickering lights between the trees and low humming noises that filled the valley. Could some unknown force, some presence hidden in the forest, have taken the villagers? These stories were dismissed by scholars, yet they persisted in the folklore of the surrounding regions. The mysterious events leading up to the disappearance, the restless animals, the lights, the hums, gave weight to these eerie theories. Each theory, plausible or not, highlights one terrifying truth. The disappearance of Eichenwald cannot be explained by logic alone. It is a puzzle that challenges our understanding of the natural world, history, and human society. Every question leads to another. Every explanation raises further doubt. The people of Eichenwald remain a ghostly presence in the valley, their lives recorded only in fragments of documents, rumors, and the imagination of those who hear the story. And while we may never know the truth, the theories keep the mystery alive, inviting speculation, debate, and perhaps fear. What caused Eichenwald to vanish overnight? Was it illness, disaster, human cruelty, or something far darker, beyond comprehension? The answers may never come, but the legend of the village lingers, whispering to all who dare to uncover its secrets. Decades have passed since Eichenwald vanished overnight, yet the village has not been forgotten. Today, the valley stands empty, a silent monument to a mystery that defies explanation. Nature has slowly reclaimed the streets. Roofs have collapsed under the weight of snow and time. Trees grow through walls and weeds sprout from cracked cobblestones. The village seems frozen in a moment long past, a ghostly echo of lives that once thrived. Those who venture into the ruins speak of an unsettling atmosphere. The air feels heavier, colder, as though carrying the weight of the vanished villagers. Travelers report faint flickering lights in broken windows, though no one has ever lived there for decades. Some claim to hear footsteps where no one walks, whispers carried on the wind, and doors creaking open or shut on their own. Animals, too, behave strangely around the abandoned valley. Dogs growl at empty spaces, and birds avoid the area entirely. Even the forest seems different, as if the shadows themselves remember what happened. Local folklore has kept Eichenwald alive in the collective imagination. Stories tell of villagers trapped in some parallel existence, of spirits wandering the ruins, or of a curse that fell on the valley the night the village disappeared. Some historians dismiss these tales as legend, yet they persist, passed from generation to generation, whispered in taverns and around campfires near the valley. The ruins are more than reminders of a vanished village. They are a window into history's most chilling questions. Archaeologists and explorers who study the site often leave unsettled, noting that the evidence raises more questions than answers. Why were the homes left in perfect order? Why was there no trace of struggle, no footprints, no escape routes? And why do those who visit feel as if they are being watched by unseen eyes? Eichenwald today is silent, but it speaks in subtle, haunting ways. Every broken window, every overgrown path, every abandoned hearth tells the story of a life interrupted, a community erased, and a mystery that refuses to fade. The village is gone, yet its presence lingers, a reminder that some secrets are buried too deep to uncover, yet too powerful to ignore. Those who seek answers to the village's fate may never find them. But for anyone willing to step into the ruins, Eichenwald offers a glimpse of a night where history itself was rewritten, leaving behind only silence, shadows, and questions. The mystery of Eichenwald remains unsolved. Hundreds of people vanished overnight, leaving behind a village frozen in time. Doors left open, meals unfinished, fires reduced to cold ashes. Yet no footprints, no bodies, no evidence of escape. Historians, investigators, and explorers have all tried to make sense of what happened. They examined documents, scoured the surrounding forests, and retraced the valley's paths. But every lead ended in silence. Even official records are incomplete or missing entirely, as if someone, or something, deliberately erased the village from history. Over the years, theories have come and gone. Disease, natural disaster, human involvement, supernatural forces. Each explanation raises new questions rather than answers. The more we try to understand Eichenwald, the more the mystery deepens. And yet the village continues to haunt those who hear its story. Travelers report flickering lights in the ruins. Whispered voices ride the wind through the valley. Footsteps echo across streets that have long been overgrown. Animals behave strangely near the ruins, sensing something invisible, something unexplainable. The story of Eichenwald is not just one of disappearance. It is one of lingering presence, a shadow that refuses to fade. Perhaps the truth will never be known. Perhaps the villagers remain trapped in a place between worlds, or perhaps they were taken by forces we cannot comprehend. Some secrets are meant to remain hidden, buried in shadows beyond our reach. And yet, the story persists, compelling us to ask the questions history cannot answer. What happened to Eichenwald? What became of the people who once lived there? And what do the lingering signs, the cold air, the abandoned homes, the flickering lights truly mean? We may never know. All we can do is remember, to acknowledge that history is not always kind, and that some mysteries are too deep to uncover, yet too powerful to ignore. Eichenwald is one of those mysteries, a story that reminds us that the world is not always what it seems, and that some nights, entire communities can vanish without a trace. The village may be gone, but its story lives on, and it waits for the curious, the brave, and those willing to step into the shadow and ask the questions no one else dares. This is Shadow Archives, where history's darkest secrets are uncovered, one mystery at a time.